Extinct here with Extinct Motorsports. This morning we're going to show you why the inline thermostat modification is definitely better than the factory thermostat. So let's get to it.
So as part of our blog post on the top 10 reasons why an inline thermostat is better than the factory thermostat, we've made this video to explain the top 3 reasons. Number 3, you can replace the thermostat with minimal coolant loss. Number 2, you can replace the thermostat in less than 10 minutes. And number 1, you can actually run the truck with no thermostat element at all. Now on to the video.
So we've got our engine running here, and this engine has a 170-degree thermostat. So it's running about 177 this morning. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut our engine off, and then we're going to bleed the pressure out of the coolant tank, and then we're going to remove the thermostat housing while losing less than a cup of coolant. Now, a lot of you probably know that I recommend running your coolant tank cap one full turn loose and pull tight so that it does not lose pressure. But in this case, we actually are we're running the cap tight for this demonstration purpose. So I'm going to show you now that the cap's tight. So the cap is full tight and the system is building pressure. So now I'm going to shut the engine off, and I'm going to bleed the pressure, and we're going to remove the thermostat. Okay, now you can see, you look closely, the tank has normal level of coolant in it. And so now I'm going to bleed the pressure off of that tank. Now, you have to be very careful bleeding pressure off of a tank on a hot engine, but it can be done safely. The best way to do it is take a towel, cover the tank completely, and then you loosen the cap until you hear the tank begin to vent, and it's about one full turn. It's just beginning to vent there. It's a bit quiet. Of course, on a hot engine, on a very hot engine, like a 200-degree engine or a 220-degree engine, you're going to get a lot more bubbling, you're going to get a lot more venting noise than what I'm getting this morning. Bit more venting noise there. Okay, so I've got my tank safely vented. I'm just going to leave that like that. Don't want any splashes. So the next thing you do if you're going to remove the thermostat element from the engine is you pick the hose up like this, and I'm squeezing the hose, and what I'm doing is I'm getting the coolant back down into the engine, back down into the radiator. Right? And I'm doing it in a way where I can easily get to it. Now this housing's quite hot, so I have to be a little bit careful holding it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loosen the bolts briefly, and then slowly remove them so that I can lose as little coolant as possible. Still a bit of coolant in there. If you orient the housing just right, though, it runs back down into the housing, back down into the engine. You do have to be very careful. You can get burned badly doing this if you're not careful about it. biggest thing you have to be careful about is the precaution of a pressurized splash where you're covered in coolant. That can give you pretty severe burns. So this is really just an emergency procedure, but I wanted to show it just in case you ever had a thermostat failure on the road, on the trail, whatever. Your truck is running hot, you're not sure what's going on. Maybe you need to remove the bolts and just run without a thermostat for a little while. Here's my second bolt. Okay. I've got my housing up and my bolt. I'm going to turn this housing up like this. That's going to help prevent coolant from running out. Kind of tuck it in there. There's my thermostat element. Now the other thing we highly recommend is the use of the reusable silicone gasket, because now I can put the whole system back together with no thermostat in the housing, and the truck will run just fine, if not a little bit cool in this environment. Now of course, the Disco radiator is only capable of holding about 100 degrees over ambient. So if the ambient temperature is over 80 degrees, your truck's still going to run 180 degrees. I got the first bolt in there. Snug that down a little bit. I need to center the gasket up a little so that it doesn't leak. Retrieve the bolt that fell down into the hood latch. Never fails if the bolts fall where you don't want them to, right? Okay. Here's our second bolt in. The nut on it. Again, I'm going to take a step here with the bolts sort of just hand snug, and I'm going to center this gasket up to make sure that we don't get any leaks when we tighten it down. Now, of course, this is much faster if you use a ratcheting wrench or an impact wrench, but you're not always going to have that with you on the road, so I chose to do it with good old box end wrenches today. Okay, and we're done. I'm going to put my cap back on. I'm going to show you how Extinct likes to run their cap. So we run one full turn loose from full tight. And that prevents the system from building pressure, and you don't have to worry about the system blowing a hose off. And you can see, we're running without leaking here on our thermostat. So we're going to call that a successful demonstration.